Good afternoon, all. First off, I'd like to thank Sus for the invite today to speak a bit about Northrop and our programs for our future engineers. So, first off, thanks for coming today. Taking the time out of your studies and obviously classes, lectures. I'm sure you're all pretty busy. So, first off, starting off, a couple of things on the agenda that we'll be covering. First off, an introduction to Northrop as a company. Going over our graduate and undergrad program. Short little graduate video. What can you do now to improve your chances at securing a position in the future with us? What do we look for in candidates? And a great Q&A session with our Northrop team who's lovely volunteered today. So also be a part of that as well. So if there's any questions in the recruitment kind of area that you have for me, I'm more than happy to kind of answer those as well. So the number of sectors that we do work in, definitely a wide variety. So going across the screen there, so aged care, kind of multi-unit residential, health, industrial, student accommodation, commercial, retail, fit outs, hospitality, education, schools and universities, community, parks and recreational facilities, and infrastructure. Being that kind of wide variety, our structural engineers have operated across a number of those areas and probably a few niche ones too. So definitely if you have any questions related to certain types of projects that you've seen Northrop done in the past, you can definitely have a crack and perhaps one of them might have worked on it as well. So we'll see how that goes. And then, so this is the way that Northrop essentially splits up our kind of divisions and companies. So civil and structural will be kind of the pretty big areas of the business, and then integrated buildings is where the specialty kind of niches come into play, kind of mechanical, electrical, acoustics, kind of all of the below there, and sustainability areas as well, which is really cool to see the business focusing on those areas as well. So Northrop in 2024, so a number of certain achievements there in terms of having over 550 staff. We have quite ambitious targets to reach by 2030. So with the recruitment drive, hopefully we can reach them. Between 800 to 1,000 staff, hopefully. So you could be one of them. We'll see how it goes. So we currently have 9 offices across Australia, mainly on the right-hand side. So we're a multidisciplinary engineering consultancy, of course, focusing on that design side. We don't do any construction ourselves. And then 100 million annual turnover, which is always good. I'm sure that'll increase over the years as well. And then we have representation on all major industry boards. And the big factor is we are employee owned. So everyone that's has an ownership stake in the business is actively a part of the day-to-day. So there's no one sitting in the background just making some money. They're all contributing and kind of working, which is always very good to essentially work with owners hand in hand and get their input day-to-day. And you can definitely aspire to be a future owner in the business, be a principal and all that kind of thing. So there's all those kind of things that you can look towards as well, which is really cool. So you might have seen our activity on Prospel. If you're not sure what Prospel is, it's one of our graduate kind of board partners where we advertise all our undergrad and graduate kind of roles. We're recognized in Australia's top 100 graduate employees. That's taken from about 600 to 700 employers across Australia. And then there's a couple of awards that we also won on Prospel too. So if you haven't already had a Prospel account or seen our page, feel free to check it out. We do have some great grad reviews there as well, which we are currently undertaking new grad reviews as well for the last year, which you'll see those come up very soon on the website. So a bit about me. I'm the early careers and talent specialist here at Northrop Consulting Engineers. So I lead our recruitment drive for our graduate and undergrad programs. So nationally across our 9 offices. I joined Northrop earlier this year with around 3 years of experience in recruitment across the professional services space. You probably see me around lots of different events and may have already interacted with me at several SUS events we've been a part of. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. The QR code will direct you to my LinkedIn page, or you can simply search me up on Northrop's page. So focusing on what you can do now to improve your chances, depending on where you're at with your studies, you may be at a time where you're kind of exploring opportunities or you're kind of preparing your CV, cover letter, kind of getting your academic transcript up to date. So you're going to hopefully get some good grades there. So there you go with that one. But there are plenty of things that you can do now early in your studies to improve your chances longer term in obtaining a role with us. So things like extracurricular activities, sports, charity work, having that on your kind of CV basically shows that you're able to balance a lot of different things. Join societies relating to your interests at university. So things like SUS, internship experience or kind of volunteering, other types of work, even if it isn't related, it shows your eagerness to get into the workforce. So great starting roles like being a bartender or a waitress or waiter or anything like that, basically, and get your RSA, RCG. I'm sure you can get a role in probably less than a few weeks. Working on your CV and cover letter, refine it over time and add new relevant skills and information, whatever you feel is relevant. So if you're applying for a structural focused role, maybe highlighting the units that you've done in structural and the grades that you've achieved in those ones, which is always good to see. They're obviously good. Network as much as possible, attend events like that SUS run, see different employers, connect with their recruiters like myself. Every company basically has someone focusing on early careers recruitment. It's pretty easy to find across LinkedIn. And build up your LinkedIn profile last off. Make connections with people in your field and connect with those from events. So what do we look for in candidates? So this can and will vary based on the role and location we are recruiting for. We generally look for previous exposure / experience. Criteria is dependent on the level of position we are recruiting for. Your genuine self when it comes to interviews is a big one. When interviewing, you can quickly see if someone is trying to be someone they aren't. We're looking for your genuine self to see who you are. Don't be somebody kind of you're not as that comes through. Be honest around your interests and what you generally are passionate about, whether it's certain projects or areas of engineering. You find in the undergrad space, candidates do apply for everything under the sun in terms of roles and specialties. If you're not actually interested in certain areas, that pretty much can showcase through interviews with any company. And then in terms of, I guess, probably similar to the key points that I mentioned earlier, but CV, cover letter, and academic transcript to be considered for undergrad or graduate opportunities. So tailoring those applications, I guess don't really create a CV and cover letter and just change certain like just the title and just spam it to everyone. It can show pretty easily. Like for example, applying for Northrop and highlighting your interest in transport. We don't do transport, which a lot of candidates do. Which ultimately can end to us excluding the application from the review. And yeah, so just being quite proactive in the sector for early opportunities in your studies, internships, undergrad, or any particular exposure. We do find a lot of candidates have experience tutoring as well, certain units, which can be really beneficial, of course, getting a deeper understanding of certain areas. And just a genuine passion, as mentioned. So this is a QR code to our early careers page on Prospel, where you can see information about our programs and reviews from our current and previous graduates. So feel free to scan it with your phone if you'd like. Otherwise, you can search us on Google, Northrop Prospel, and it won't be hard to find. Don't confuse us with Northrop Grumman. They're an international company. We're just national. We're Australian, but maybe in the future it will be bigger. So this will just be a bit of a grad kind of video captured earlier, I think late last year.
Northrop has really empowered me in building my career, especially these early stages, because they've given me a variety of different projects. They've given me a lot of opportunities, even interstate, in places like Sydney, Victoria, rural South Australia, doing all sorts of work on the ground, on site, in the design offices.
I work on small scale projects to big commercial, residential, community projects. And Northrop provide the opportunity to do these post-circle jobs where you get to do the technical design and then go on site. It's very different to design a hospital compared to a residential house. So getting experience in both of those has helped me improve technically as well.
Northrop has a fantastic sense of community. We have a great culture where most people come in, you can have a good chat, There's always buzz about the office and all of this around work, which is really nice. It's a great balance of getting things done, but having fun while you're doing it. You get to work with owners of the business. You work quite closely with them.
If I have any questions, everyone is always willing to answer them, even if it's a basic question.
Every single person cares about who you are as a person, not just what you can do for them. Now I can actually see my progression as a graduate and how something that I might not have been able to do a year ago, I've been able to smash out of the park now, which I love about my job and makes me want to keep being an engineer.
Yeah, all good. So which video do you want to watch next? Alrighty, so on to the next part of our presentation. So we're going to be focusing on so questions and answers, a bit of a panel. So we've got a couple of our employees from Northrop, as mentioned, in that structural space. So first off, we got Loizos, we got Lachlan and Lauren, all focused across structural. And then there'll be myself as well, just in the recruitment area. But Kevin will be running some of the questions for us. I'd like to invite our Northrop staff along. But yeah.
So I'm just going to ask a few questions. I want everyone to like, at least give some input, just to give different perspectives on the specific questions. So questions related to specific challenges that you faced. How have you handled any problems or difficulties that you've come across, like delays and stuff like that? Start with you.
Do you want to start?
I'll start.
You go.
Yeah, sure, I can start. Hi everyone, I'll introduce myself first. I'm Lauren. I'm an undergraduate structural engineer and I've been working with Northrop for about 2 years now. Because I'm an undergraduate, I've been working full-time during the holidays, so during the winter break and the summer break, but during the semester, Northrop's really flexible around classes. So I've usually been doing like 1 or 2 days a week the last couple of semesters. When I have a busier time, then I can drop down as well. So I don't have as much project experience as these two, but have definitely in those full-time periods experienced a bit of project work. One sort of, I guess, delay that I came across was when I'd sort of just finished designing a little slab on ground. The site engineer went to site and discovered that it actually wasn't a slab on ground, it was a huge pit that they had no idea the dimensions of. But I guess the thing that allowed us to get through it, me along with my mentor who was managing me at the time, was just going with the flow. You can't change what you can't change, and just doing your best, keep pushing through. And I guess with construction, there's a lot of things that you just have to accept and deal with. So just being adaptable, I think is how I would answer that.
Thank you.
It's very good. Hello everyone, my name's Lockie. I went to uni here a couple of years ago now. And the question was about challenges and delays. So I think often what can happen in construction is, as design engineers, we work in the office, we come up with a design, we issue drawings, we give them to the builder. You assume that the builder's going to follow the drawings, and then you turn up to site to inspect it, and it's not at all what you thought you would. What you get, exactly as Lauren's saying. So you might have said, I'm just trying to think of an example. You know, we've designed some precast panels to hang off a slab, and we're going to have threaded bars to screw into them. Creates a nice sturdy connection. I've turned up to site and someone's put some epoxy glue in and just stuck a bar in that doesn't have a thread on it. So it's about, this much embedded. Then the builder comes to me and says, we're pouring the concrete in half now. So things like that happen, and that's a challenge and something you have to learn. It's sort of that soft skill that no matter how good of an engineer you are, if you have sort of 20 people standing on site looking at you, what's going on, what are we going to do? And that challenge, you can only build it by coming across those things and sort of like those group projects that you do, trying to work with one another, come up with solutions when you think X is happening and then Y happens. How quickly can you come up come up with a solution is my answer to that.
Yeah. So just following off of that, how frequently do these delays occur?
All the time, all the time. And what's really interesting is that the quality of builders in Australia, there's such a demand for building. I'm sure you've heard that a lot of builders have gone under recently, and everyone's crying out for more housing. So what's happening is the quality of builder is far, far lower than you would ever assume. So when I meet a builder, I assume they know how to build, which is sometimes not always correct, which can catch you out. So, for example, a site engineer in a building company won't have done engineering, and may still be studying construction management at TAFE, and they may be 18 years old, as an example. So it's always good to remember that when you're working with people outside that try and gauge their level of experience, and make sure you're speaking to sort of someone senior on site sometimes. It can get pretty interesting.
All right.
Hi guys, my name's Witt. Since everyone else introduced themselves, I'll introduce myself as well. Been working at Northrop for about 2 years. The question was about challenges and delays and what to do when they kind of arise. I think that when these things happen, the best thing that you can do is just try to be solutions focused. So don't try to blame people. Don't try to think who's responsible, why did this go wrong. Just this is the problem that needs to be solved. And that's the mentality that I think you really need to have, not just in engineering, but in your life as well. There's no point looking back and thinking, oh, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened. It's just, this is the reality now, and we have to find something to solve it. So Lockie and Lauren gave really good examples about how things can go wrong. You were lucky because you said that it's pouring half an hour. My mistake happened when they were actively pouring the concrete. So, so that was something that was very interesting. But it's all about just being able to look forward rather than looking back and just thinking, what can we do to solve this problem rather than who can we blame? So my answer is a little bit shorter and sweeter than these ones.
Yeah, so kind of following off of that question, how do you really collaborate with, for example, architects and urban planners? Because I know the interaction is very important to engineering. Would like to start?
Yeah, wanted to go back.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
So I suppose when it comes to collaborating with other people, other professionals, it's, in my opinion, it's all about just understanding your audience, knowing your audience. So I'll talk to Lockie and Lauren differently to how I would talk to an architect or how I would talk to a builder. It's just about being able to convey what you want the best way you know how to. And whether that's through verbal communication or through written drawings. So builders, we communicate mostly through written drawing. That's how they interpret what our designs are going to be. And when things go wrong, we need to be able to explain things to them in a way that they can understand, because they generally don't have a technical background. The same is true for architects. The same is true for a lot of consultants that are outside of the structural engineering industry. So when you're within a company and a very technical company, you talk to your coworkers very differently to how you talk to other people. And I suppose that really just comes from experience. It's more about understanding what they will understand and then being able to communicate what you want as best as you can.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, completely agree. I think that's massive. It's understanding what they want. So it's not about what you know. It's about making sure that they understand what you know. So yeah, for sure. Just simple. Yeah. And I think, I guess, same thing to relate it to what you guys do every day. It's sort of like, you're on a group project and you sort of got, you might have 4 people in the project, and it's really important that you're touching base, you're communicating all the whole time, because one person's doing this, one person doing this, one person's doing this, one person's doing this, and then you turn up to site and it's completely different to what everyone thought. The more you talk, the more you communicate, the more that you are open with what's going on. It just avoids problems. Yeah.
I'm gonna speak as an undergrad, in that when I started, one thing I learned at Northrop was just how structural engineering sort of fits into this communication web of different professionals. So I think you mentioned architects, city planners, that sort of stuff. And I know when I started, I sort of struggled to grasp how do projects work and who talks to who and who's responsible to who. And we as Northrop are consulting engineers. And as we saw on the slide before, Northrop has a bunch of different sort of categories that we consult in. So all three of us are consulting structural engineers. There's also consulting civil engineers, and all of those are responsible for sort of designing different parts of the project. But the project itself is usually owned by a client who they're the one who has the money that says, we want to build this. The client usually hires out a builder who's actually going to get the project done. And then the builder goes, okay, how am I going to get this project done? I'm going to need someone to design it. So I'm going to get an architect. And I also am not 100% knowledgeable because I'm still undergrad. I'm still at uni as well. But sort of as I've learned along the way, there's the architect who does the main drawings. They design like what it's going to look like, the aesthetics. There's also then the builder hires us to figure out what structure, how big do we need the beam to be, how big do we need the column to be for this structure that the architects told us they want to do, for that to not fall down. And then there's civil as well that do earthworks and the like. I'm not 100% sure what the civils do. But yeah, there's sort of all these different other consulting engineers that help design sort of different parts of the project and make sure that they're going to work, essentially. So yeah, as structural engineers, we do a lot of communication with architects, as the others have talked about. And that's about like, you know, where can we locate columns? Can we move this around? Can we, you know, change the layout? And we also communicate a lot with builders who are actually on site. And when we're in the construction phase of the project, we'll be mostly talking to builders. So yeah, hope that.
Yeah, thank you. Does the audience have any questions about the specific challenges that engineers that they face? Yeah.
So there is a problem and a fault in the project. Who gets the blame for it?
Well, yeah, we try and avoid the blame. It really depends. Often it comes down to how clear our drawings are. So often what will happen is before we send something out at Northrop, we actually have an internal verification. So someone separate to your team, you'll hand your drawings to them and basically say, is this good enough for a builder to build off? Is it clear? Are there any mistakes? So Northrop never makes any mistakes. So it's never our fault, but it's often not as black as white as whose fault it is, because often it's about managing relationships and you know, if there's a problem, you know, at the end of the day, we're hired as help, basically technical help. So we're there to sort of help the team, even if there is a problem, even if there is someone at fault. It doesn't really matter so much because it's already happened, it's about solutions. Okay, what do we do now? But every now and then a builder has to pay up a bit of money. Yeah. Or I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I heard, I don't know if it was a lecturer or someone once told me that engineering itself is all about just managing risk. And like, as a structural engineer, we design and we take on the risk of the structure. The civil engineer takes on the risk of the whatever's on ground. And so I guess it's like, how can we best document, as you were saying, so that like, if the risk of the structure falls down, like that we aren't to blame for that because we've, you know, taken on all the risks and we've, you know, put this process in place. That's kind of confusing, but that's always stuck with me, that managing risk.
Yeah. Right. Thank you, guys. Next, let's talk about how you guys juggle commitments and, you know, like your work life and your daily life. So what kind of strategies do you use to manage time effectively on and off work?
We'll start seeing as you're still at uni.
Sure. So yeah, because I'm still at uni, there's a lot to balance, and this semester I'm doing thesis as well, so there's even more to balance. But I guess that's where like working at a company like Northrop has been the biggest blessing, because especially at Northrop as an undergrad, when you start, you're given a mentor who's directly responsible for giving you your tasks. If you have any questions, they are literally always there available to answer your questions. And so I have a good working relationship with my mentor, and so he's very happy for me, depending on my uni commitments, to drop back on work if uni's getting too much, or to pick up more work if uni's having a bit of a quieter time. So I've just had to be very aware of like self-aware of how busy uni is at that current point in time, so that I can, you know, allocate which days I'm going to work and which days I'm just going to focus on uni. So yeah, tip one would be work at a good company that is accepting that you are a university student at the end of the day. You do have studies to do. And also, yeah, just block out the days based on what you want to achieve.
Yep. So, sorry. Does anybody have any specific questions for Lauren, since she's also a student? Yeah.
You mentioned that you designed some stuff as an undergrad structural engineer, right? How did you go about learning how to design? Is that something you learn at uni, or do you just figure it out after coming?
Great question. So when I started, I had done concrete structures, the subject. So I think there are 3,000 level subjects, concrete structures and steel structures. And if you want to be like especially a structural design engineer, those two are like the main the bread and butter of like what you actually do as a design engineer, to the point that like when I was tasked, so yeah, when you get to work as well, your mentor really sort of checks in, sees where you're at in terms of like, do you know how to design anything? At the start, I really didn't know how to design anything. But that's where working as an undergrad as well is great, because there's no expectation that you do know how to design things yet, especially not like, you're not just going to be given like, oh, here's a whole building to design. Like some of my first small design tasks at work were, here's a column, these are the loads that are going to be on this column. Can you tell us within this size how much reinforcement we need in this column? And like at the very first time I did that, every single step of it was like help supported. I would look back at my uni notes. At one point, I was literally like almost copying out an assignment that I'd done in concrete structures, but obviously changing the numbers to be based on this application. I can't remember what your original question was, but essentially, no, you're not expected to like know how to design things because you're still a student. But subjects like steel structures and concrete structures really help with understanding that process. I know steel structures as well, especially the main point of the subject is you do an overarching like design assignment where you go through and design different stages of the building, and that is as well like exactly what you would do in a structural designing job.
I can just add on to that, Lauren. I think that university gives you a really good foundation for your work as a structural engineer, because as a structural engineer and with any technical job, really, you never stop learning. You're always learning new things. Even as a senior, you'll be learning new and new things. You'll be encountering things that you don't know what to do. And university gives you that foundation. It also gives you the kind of techniques to go out and research things yourself. So a lot of people think, oh, university is a little bit of a waste of time. You learn on the job anyway. It's not the case. University definitely gives you a lot of foundational knowledge, and especially my first roughly 3 to 6 months at Northrop, every time I'm doing something, oh yeah, I remember I was doing that at university, that kind of attitude. It just gives you that foundation that you wouldn't get otherwise elsewhere. So it's definitely very good. You just can't do the job without it.
Do you have any inputs as like experienced engineers?
Managing commitments. Okay.
Yeah.
The original. Yeah. How do I do it? Okay. I would say like, I think as you get older, you start to realize like you choose what you want in life, and there's people who commit 200% to work and they have a incredible work career, but they might sacrifice on other things. So they might not hang out with their friends as much on a meet at the pub on a Wednesday night. They might not do that. So it all comes down to what you see as valuable and how you want to choose your time. And I think it's about just being conscious of where you are spending your time. If you really want to progress your career, but you're going out 4 nights a week, you've got to think about the decisions you're making. So one great thing about Northrop is it's quite flexible. So, a working day, 7.5 hours. You can get in at 8 o'clock and finish at whatever time, or you can get in at 9 o'clock and finish at whatever time. You can get in at 9:30 and finish at whatever time. It's more about self-managed, that sort of thing. I guess a more specific answer would be like when I'm actually working, it's really important I'm sure it's the same thing as well when you're studying, not to have distractions like your phone, things like that. But for us, when I'm working on a certain task, you'll keep getting emails because we work across 5, 6, 7 different projects at once. You'll get emails from all these different projects. And so each time you stop and respond to this, you sort of lose your train of thought and you spend another 10 minutes getting your head back into this project. So one trick I've found, which hopefully is sort of a similar way that most of you study, you don't just jump around all the time. You block out, okay, I'm going to do 2 hours of this, or I'm going to do 2 hours of this. So that's my answer.
In terms of kind of juggling commitments, things like that, I think just being able to plan things out beforehand is the way that I go about it. So you plan out your week, you plan out your day, and I'm spending maybe no more than 5 minutes a day really planning it out. Well, I give it some thought, but I'm not sitting there making detailed and in-depth schedules or anything like that. It's just, I have so-and-so deadlines coming up. What do I need to do in order to meet these deadlines? So I can put 3 days per week for the next 3 weeks on this project. I can put 1 day per week on that project for the next 2 weeks. I've got this inspection coming up. I need to factor that in somewhere. So you just kind of plan out your weeks. Once you've planned out your weeks, you can plan out your days. You just say, this day I'm going to get this done. This day I'm going to get that done. Now, of course, I'm sure everybody knows not everything goes to plan. Quite often things take longer than you expect them to. Quite often things just pop up. And it's just all about kind of being adaptable, being able to prioritize things, shuffle things around. You can't be totally rigid, not in any job or in any factor of your life. So just being able to spend some time, this is why I also don't spend too much time planning things, because I know it's not going to go exactly to plan, even within the day. So it's just about, giving it some thought, planning things out, and then also being adaptable to kind of rearrange things and move things around. That's the way that I found is best to do it.
All right, thank you. Because I always put stuff in my Google Calendar and never follow it. So yeah, so how do you guys typically handle like really high stress periods of work and stuff like that?
I can't say I have any high stress periods at work as an undergrad. Just coming in, yeah, I think it's the way it should be.
Yeah.
As an undergrad, I think Northrop and my mentor as well are really good at managing that, not putting heaps of pressure on me as an undergrad, because it's sort of a time for learning. And I think Northrop really acknowledges that really well, that you're here to learn, you're here to pick up things. It's not meant to be stressful, but I don't know if it's different for you guys. You graduated.
I just think when it comes to managing stress, there is not a single person here who has not experienced stress. You've got so many things coming up. You've got a lot of work to do. You've got various aspects of your life that may not be going very well. To me, especially when it comes to work, you have to just understand, especially in a professional setting, that you can only do so much in so much time. So when a lot of work pressure is being applied to a team or to a person, it is a little bit about just putting your head down and doing as much as you can. It is a little bit about working a little bit extra if you have to, and we do have paid overtime, so that's a plus about our company as well. But it's also about being able to work with others and reach out to others and getting help from elsewhere. And every single time I've been put into a situation where there is a lot of pressure on the team, we've been able to reach out to other teams and get help, because the other team might have a bit of a lull in work. So I think it's just more about communication rather than just trying to do it all yourself, trying to bottle it all up. It's just,
No, that makes sense.
It's just about being able to communicate, to understand your limitations, to understand that there's only so much you can do. And as long as you know that you're doing the best that you can, and yes, there will be periods of crunch where you are under a bit more pressure. That's just unavoidable. But you will manage to work through it. You will be able to get a result that you're proud of at the end of it. And 99 times out of 100, you will be able to get help from elsewhere in these sorts of periods of time.
Okay.
At least
You definitely find there's different peaks and troughs of your career, like while working and any kind of employer. Like there's times of the year where can be extremely busy, or there's times where, for example, you might not have as much work on. So during those really busy times, it's being really diligent in terms of your planning and kind of your certain outcomes you'd like to achieve in a given week. And then being conscious, of course, that your life isn't purely work, depending on where you're at, of course, and what you're going to focus on. For example, myself in recruitment, kind of that early year between that kind of April-ish time, that is where the graduate campaign essentially kicks off, and it gets a bit ridiculous, handling 9 officers and kind of all different specialties, recruiting for a grad and an undergrad. It can get extremely busy, but just focusing on outcomes and being very dedicated with your time management as well. Whereas, like, for example, you can commit your entire week focusing on one essay you want to do, and at the end of the week, you've only got 1,000 words, and you're thinking, shit, I've got 15 more essays to do, or whatever you're at. Being quite diligent, and especially it can be times where you can think back in uni where it's like, oh, I have exam week coming up. You can feel that way in work as well, having certain deadlines and like projects or certain roles that I need to fill. That can be where you just need to be really head down, focus on what you're doing, and kind of plan out your days and be quite effective with your time. And at the end of the day, it's not necessarily kind of like if you don't achieve this, it's going to be the end of the world, but it's just understanding that you've done everything in your power to kind of reach that.
Yeah. In 10 weeks, everyone is probably going to be applying these strategies during exam period. So, all right. So these are more pathway questions. So, what kind of path did you guys take to get to Northrop Consulting?
Okay. While I was at uni, I worked as a lifeguard for many years. So I was actually lucky enough to do sort of uni at like a 3/4, bit of a weird pace. Anyway, and then I found when I started getting serious about looking for undergrad roles and grad roles and internships, and the best way to do it is to reach out to everyone you know and say, does anyone know an engineer? And don't be shy about asking, because so many people or people you know love to support you, and can be shy, can be nervous to ask, but if your dad's friend works as an engineer, they'd be so happy to have you on. So I think that's the biggest thing, especially when you're looking for internships or undergrads. It's about understanding the network that you do have already. Ask your dad, ask your cousin, ask your uncle, or whatever. So that's how I go about that. And that's how I got my internship, which led to an undergraduate. And then I went traveling for a year, and then the person that I was working with as an undergraduate moved companies, and then there was a role there, so they said come here. So that's how I got a graduate role at Northrop, and then I've sort of just been with Northrop since. So you really don't know. It can sort of be a bit disheartening. I remember I took 2 weeks off from work and everything, and just applied to sort of all those big companies, the miners, the GHD, all these massive companies, and got nothing back. And I was just like, that sucks. But then asking around, it's incredible the sort of the power of networking, and the people you know want to help you is the reality of, or what I found at least. Yeah.
All right. Networking, guys. Make sure you do it.
But not like fake networking.
Yeah.
Genuine, I don't know. Everyone knows the difference between that.
Yeah. My journey to Northrop started at a SUS event, actually. It was in the era of COVID, and SUS was holding an online industry night, which at first I was like, that's a bit strange. And I don't know how I can build like a genuine, network with people just online. But luckily I did, and I was able to meet Trudy, who is like a senior at Northrop at one of these networking events. And we had a really, really genuine conversation on the night, which was really nice. And I reached out to her on LinkedIn the next day, and I was like, it was really lovely chatting with you. Please let me know if there's any undergrad opportunities. I didn't push it, but I just asked really politely. And she came back and said, we'd love to have you. So then put me through the undergrad process. Luckily, it was like right at the right time in that whole process. I think timing as well is a big thing. That it might be that the company might not necessarily not want you, but it's just like at this time, it just doesn't, there's no one here who can help train you. But I think my timing was really good. And yeah, so when I connected with that particular senior, she said it would be more advisable to wait a little bit to actually start the internship, because I was still very, very early on in my degree at that stage. I think I was like still at the end of first year. And she suggested that having done a technical subject like steel or concrete first would allow me to sort of learn more on the job than if I came in completely blind with not much technical university experience at all. So I started about 6 months later. But yeah, that was my journey to Northrop, again through networking.
Industry nightclub, guys. Buy your tickets.
All right. Me, I think the mistake that I made during university was not doing enough work experience, not doing enough internships. I worked all throughout uni, but the work that I did was not related to the industry itself. So my biggest advice to everybody in here is to try to get as much relevant industry experience as you can. That is very, very important. And I think that first step of kind of getting the foot in the door, so to speak, getting that first internship, getting that first opportunity, that's the most difficult one. Once you get that first opportunity, the next ones come a lot easier, because once you get in and once you're able to show your abilities, you're able to show your enthusiasm, it's a lot easier for people to recommend you to others. It's a lot easier for opportunities to just kind of be around you because you're in that industry. So the way that I got into my first position was actually site management. And that came through, very similar to Lauren and Lachlan, that came through networking as well. So I think I was just in the right place at the right time, because a friend of mine at university had some work experience or was doing an internship at a company, at a construction company. And she said to me, hey, are you interested in an opportunity because the company is looking for an undergraduate? And I said yes, and then they called me in for an interview. So just that first step, I think, is definitely the hardest for a lot of people. And I think the most important thing to try to get to that first step is to try to network as much as you can. Because a lot of the time people think, oh, so-and-so was lucky, they managed to get that opportunity. But that opportunity was only presented to them because they put themselves out there and they started networking. The more of these events that you go to, the more people you talk to, the more your network sort of grows, the higher the chance is that this opportunity will present itself to you. So there is going to be an opportunity to every single person there. It will present itself to you, but you have to seek it out. You can't just sit back and expect it. Right? That was my mistake that I made during university, is I didn't seek it out as much as I should have. So my advice to everybody here is try to expand your network as fast as you can. So it took me a little bit longer to get into this role that I am now, because I didn't do that step during university.
Yeah, so my next question was going to be on networking, but it was very clearly explained. So does the audience have any other questions about their personal journey? Yeah.
What's been like a highlight or the most rewarding thing from working in Northrop?
Good question. I think for me so far, the most rewarding thing has been when I do my like tiny little section of the design of some like one column or something, and then being able to actually go on site and for the inspection, because yeah, we do the design, I think, as we've mentioned already. And then to make sure the builders have built it the way we said they should, we have to go out and inspect it. And I think that's where a lot of the problems can arise. But regardless, being able to like actually see something that you put on paper or you designed is probably the most rewarding part for me. And it's been in very small quantities so far, but it's still very rewarding nonetheless.
Yeah, I'd say the most rewarding part would be sort of, Northrop's pretty special in that we work across a lot of projects. So I'm working on projects that I'm proud to put my name to. So I'm working on Westmead Hospital, which is cool. I'm working on GWS, which is an AFL team. They're adding a high performance training center and a scoreboard and things like that. So I've been involved in that. And it's sort of, if you make it clear to the management team what areas you're interested in working in, whether it's industrial, whether it's residential, whether it's there's a pretty strong likelihood that you'll be able to end up working in that. So yeah, it's just that's what's the coolest thing about Northrop is being able to work on projects that you sort of relate to your values. And then I'm not sure if anyone's heard about the new Sydney fish market with the massive blue lamb. Anyway, it's super cool. We went out there because Northrop designed this timber roof, and that was probably the coolest building I've ever seen and ever walked on. And then that was super cool. So when it finishes, everyone go have some oysters there.
For the most rewarding thing, or I think something that's very rewarding for me is just the fact that you're never really given the same thing twice, so to speak. You're always getting something new, you're always learning something new. And just for me, getting something that's quite challenging and then being able to break it down, research it, understand it, and then solve it. And that comes from reaching out to other people who are experts for help. That comes from my own work, that comes from my own study, you know, being able to solve these problems and then see my work become something physical. That I feel is very rewarding. Just to be able to solve something that's quite challenging and then see that work become something. I don't really have much else to say for that. It's just, and you keep on getting that when you're working in structural engineering, when you're working at Northrop. You keep getting those problems, you keep solving them, and they keep getting built, so to speak. It's a very nice feeling. I enjoy it a lot.